Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting for May 1st, 2019. We are recording, so if you are recording, please let us know. And if you could silence your cell phones, that'd be great. We're going to start with public meeting, public comment for items not being heard this evening. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Maine Council. I just wanted to quickly put a bug in the commission's ear and ask if you might be willing at a future hearing to schedule a time to talk a little bit about pools in your jurisdiction and how they're being conditioned and that sort of thing, potential impacts in flood zones, other areas. I think it's just a topic that I'd certainly like to just kind of ask some questions about, and it would be nice to do it in more of a general tone rather than during one specific application. So if there's an opportunity in an upcoming meeting to sort of that on the agenda, great. I'd like to just kind of review standard conditions.
That's probably a good idea. I think at this point we're getting kind of numb to them.
Yeah.
So we have our written set of conditions, and we did probably half of us, but I can't remember half of them.
Great.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you guys want me to kind of eyeball them within like the next one or two agendas and try to
That'd be
pick what looks to be the shorter of the two and add pools into other business for discussion?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, going into the, any other items? Okay. So going into the public hearing, notice of intent, continuances, we have a bunch. Mary D. Starr, 19 East Creek Road, continued till May 22nd. Gregory Race, 19 East Creek Road, continued till May 22nd. Last Family, 20 Wickwood Road, continued till June 5th. Hither Creek Boatyard, 20 North Cambridge Street, continued till May 22nd. Booyah LLC, 9 Crow's Nest Way, continued till May 22nd. And in the amended orders of conditions, Holbert Ac LLC, 2 Holbert Ave, as well as Holbert Ac 2 LLC, 4 Holbert Ave, are both continued till May 22nd.
We have one more too. Sorry, on the certificates of compliance, the Susan Ball 41 Easton Street is to the 22nd as well.
Okay.
We just got a plan late. We haven't had a chance to
Okay.
check it. Oh, that one's going to be continued. Sorry, to the 6th,
To the 6th.
which is the SPPF hearing.
Okay.
Just the certificate of compliance.
No problem. Okay, great. Okay, so we are going to start with Town of Nantucket for Bathing Beach Road.
So I don't see Mark here yet. So
So
if we
next
could skip it. And real quickly, sorry, I've missed this in public comment and not to totally derail the meeting. I just wanted to remind everyone here and invite everyone tomorrow night downstairs from 6 to 8 p.m. The town of Nantucket is having their Great Pond Forum. So we'll be discussing kind of follow up to last year's forum and some updates on some things and some revisions to what was the draft of the kind of the pond management principles at that time. To kind of go over what's going on, what's happening with Sacagawea, Myakama, and Long Pond specifically. So it's open to the public. There'll be questions and plenty of time for people and ways to leave comments for people that don't get a chance to speak. And hopefully it will be informative. It's being run and presented by our new water quality specialist, Thais. So it'll be a chance for everyone to kind of meet her as well. So sorry, I missed that in public comment. Yes, it'll be recorded because it's downstairs, so we'll definitely be on.
Okay. Great. So, okay, so let's go to Cuneo, 122 Walburnett Road.
All right, dig this out, Mr. Chairman. We had
beach access boardwalk as well as upgrade of septic system up forward. I believe that Jeff could get to those issues that are outstanding to plan to show. I could have raised a question about how people might get down to the beach, showing the walkway down to the beach.
Right.
There's also a question about what the height of the pier would be,
Yeah, it's fine.
30 inches, yeah. Any questions or concerns?
None.
Any questions for the public? Okay, seeing not, Jeff, we have everything now?
We do.
Okay. Would you like to close?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Nantucket Conservation Foundation, Madara Creek and Five Quays pasture.
So I think we did get some new shirts. I like that color. What do you call that color? I call it the color that Joanne picked out. I thought it's
Seafoam.
No, it's more like a mint.
Oh, mint.
Yeah.
so that's a change. We were also on this one, Mr. Chairman. We are waiting for Natural Heritage comments
Yep.
on this project as well, which we have received, and they are the same as the last ones. They didn't really have any no comments.
This is the voracious crab.
So as a reminder, this was the purple crab and salt marsh restoration
Yep.
project.
That's right. Crab bake.
We should do some video.
Yeah.
Now, my question, do they just like climb into the traps and then you collect them?
Yeah, so the
Easy.
traps are essentially big, the plastic cans that you get balls in.
Okay.
And
They just, like,
we
fall
put
in.
holes in them.
High tech.
It's what's wetland science is not high.
This is high tech for wetland science.
And we just use an auger and you just, you sink it down so that it's level with the soil surface.
Okay.
Oh.
And you just crawl along.
All
And
right.
They can't get
it.
out.
Then you
Oh.
put the holes in, water gets in, and they just kind of hang out in there.
So you come and collect them,
Yeah.
and then you send them to a farm in the country?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Send them
Okay.
upstate.
Now you freeze them and you find a recipe.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like little mini pitfall traps for crabs.
Essentially.
Okay, any questions from the public on this one? Okay. We have everything you need?
We do.
Would you like to close? All in favor? Very good.
Keep us posted.
I will.
Fun. Tennis balls, and the hole's already dug for you. Okay. Oh my. Okay. Andrew Biggio, 155 Walnut Road.
For the applicant, Marcus Barrow, before you tonight with the Septic public hearing.
I always get the bad. No, I just, no one can hear me. I don't know. Is this even working? Okay.
Yeah. Again, it's more for the recording at home.
No, I get it. I'm practically eating this thing. Okay. Come on, this is fancy stuff. I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
This is the application that you reviewed at your last meeting, which included the upgrade, voluntary upgrade to an IA septic system at the property, which is one of the houses headed out towards Great Point. And there was the issue with the retaining wall that had been constructed. We shifted out 4 feet from the previous approval. I won't rehash it all that we went through. We were waiting for Natural Heritage to sign off, which we have received. I don't believe there was any outstanding questions from the commission. Doesn't have to address any
This up here.
variance request. For putting the system.
Right. And it wasn't a failed system. It was just,
No, not
It
failed,
was-
they actually got
it's-
the building permit
right.
off the system that was there,
right.
so
It's more for
being done
mitigation for the
voluntarily.
wall.
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you guys feel? Not feeling? Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'll open the public. Any questions from the public? Concerns? Okay. So, okay, Jeff, we have everything you need to close on this one?
We do.
Like to close, Art?
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Art. Okay, Sankaty Head Golf Club, 8 and 18 Hoyks Hollow Road. Oh, come on. Oh, yes, okay. Pardon. People want- There you go.
Kind of get in front of it. That's the best you can.
Let's try. Good evening. My name is Firuzan Hagopian. They call me VH for short. You know, it's a difficult name. I'm a coastal waterfront engineer from GEI, and my associate Brad Saunders is is a regulatory specialist. So we are here today on behalf of our client, Sankaty Beach Club. We are presenting shoreline coastal bank restoration process. Did you get a chance to go and take a look at the site, by the way? Because then I'll have some time to explain it, or I'll make it short.
I saw it this fall, actually.
Yeah.
Right. Needless to say, the site is located facing east. I think across the pond is somewhere in Europe. The fetch is unlimited, and we know that specific shoreline or the edge of the island gets significant erosion. It's a constant erosion. Some years we get more, some years we get less, depending how many significant storms we get. So I visited the site on behalf of the client in 2016. We were going to try to come up with a similar application at the time. For one reason or another, we went through the study, but didn't happen. Since then, we've been really experiencing significant erosion on the tune of about 2.5 to 3 or 4 feet per year. In the documentation that we submitted, there is a study that was done by Woods Aldwood. And in the past couple of decades, that entire shoreline has recessed on the tune of about 60 plus feet. So this is something happening. It's for a long time. It's going to continue to happen, and it's going to get worse as sea level rise becomes an issue, significant issue that in the future that we have to deal with. So our process is to present to you slope stabilization, which is totally soft in our approach. Essentially, it's following on the guidelines of a living shoreline, but it's really not a true living shoreline because most of the slope stabilization we are doing, it's above the mean high water. If portion of that was in the intertidal zone, then it becomes a true living shoreline. But nevertheless, our intent is to stabilize the shoreline, which I'm going to share with you. Our design is fairly straightforward, using free material available on the market. As you can see here, we are going to reshape the slope, make it a little steeper because we don't want to encroach. And by the way, just today on way here, we received a letter from the National Heritage, and they are identifying a few issues that we need to address, which we will, and copy you on and work with them in terms of what the right solution is. Their concern is they don't want us to encroach on the coastal area because that's considered piping plover habitat. Although I've been there many times during various seasons, I've never seen a piping plover that really nesting over there, but regardless, it's a habitat and we have to deal with it. So our intent is to balance the process so we don't encroach quite a bit. But the design is in two prongs. We want to come in, again, all the work we are doing is above the mean high water, there's your mean high water. But we are within the potential 100-year flood. So we want to excavate and we want to do 2 cells. And these cells are literally made with biodegradable material. All it is just a low, almost like a couple of barrels. We want to square, we want to fill them up with the same sand that we get out of the slope. We want to put them in and we want to dry some white oak stakes in front, 5 feet from center, because we want to try to stabilize that for the critical period of 2 to 3 years until we completely vegetate the slope. Then, of course, we are using fiber rolls, core logs, to be able to set them back, and we are creating almost like a sandwich layer. And these are all biodegradable netting material that goes in there. This is essentially, it's the idea of how we do structural slope stabilization without really using any hard material, tie backs and things like that, but it's the same concept, the same stability process. Then I'd like to create a little shelf, and I will explain the purpose of that shelf. And from there up, at this point, we don't anticipate any direct wave energy during intense storm to be able to attack directly the slope. So by doing that, then we will continue to stabilize the entire slope. We will vegetate it with the appropriate vegetation. It's already articulated in the documents. And then we will come in and we will nourish the face of the core logs. And that really serves 2 purposes. One purpose is the core logs will stay there in good structural condition as long as they are protected from direct UV degradation. So as long as we cover them, they're going to be there for quite some time. And we don't want to interrupt the sand littoral process. We don't want to deprive our neighbors down the road. We want to maintain the flow of the sand up and down the shoreline actively. So therefore, we are going to put nourished sand beach on that surface. As we know, over the years, the natural process is going to continue, and that sand is going to could be built further, or it could be eroded and moved down the street. How, of course, when you build something like this, you're going to incorporate in it basic annual maintenance and a long-term maintenance. The annual maintenance will be after we place all that stuff and get it done. We have to visit the site at least twice a year, in the fall and in the spring, and after every significant storm, because we want to inspect that and make sure that sand cover is there, protecting the asset that we built underneath it. And if the sand cover gets thin, which gets measured at the time of the inspections, then a new beach sand nourishment is going to have to come in to maintain that process. So that's really the simple approach in terms of doing that.
And it's not even in it. It's when the sand
Right.
goes down. It's
Thank you.
actually going to continue on.
Thank you for the correction. And as a result, as part of our application, we were advised that there are certain assets on the top, which is part of the beach club. They're already teetering on taking a dive down the slope. And we've put in some images that we took recently. And it's constantly eroding. So there is no vegetation on the slope, really. Any vegetation that you see down here, it's cascaded, which is the turf grasses on the top. As it gets undermined, big chunks coming down and just tumble down. So as part of doing this, we want to take, I believe, 2 cabanas and portion of the deck already because it's undermined. So we're going to have to remove it. And it's all articulated in terms of what we want to do. And there is an existing ADA ramp that gets you up on the front side of the beach club to the deck. And that's under, it's being eroded severely. So we're going to take that and then put it in the back of the building because that's the only place to put it. If we don't do something like this, it's only a matter of time continuous erosion, we will make that facility non-functional. So that's where we are. The comments we received today is, again, this is a habitat for piping plover. They were asking us if we can make the slope a little steeper to be able to lessen any impact in the area. We will respond to their comments. I would love to make it more steeper, but I think making it more steeper will make it more susceptible for failure. There is a balancing act we're going to do. If possibility, I can probably reduce the shelf a little bit to 3 feet. Reducing it beyond that depth, the shelf will no longer be functional. The shelf is there that if we get any sloughing from here, we can notify, we can see it and observe it in here and go back and do corrective measures. Plus, once we create the shelf and plant the upper slope, we want that to be stable through the vegetations and all that stuff. And we want the lower portion, which is within the influence zone, is to be the active part that continues to nourish the region, contributes sand and so on and so forth. Brad, you want to take this?
Yeah.
Let me hold that.
I have both the green cards and certified mail receipts. Is there a preference on which one?
I'll take them both if you want to get rid of them.
Perfect.
No problem.
The only other thing I wanted to say is we also included in the notice of intent a description of the performance standards and compliance with the performance standards for work on and adjacent to the coastal bank. And most of those standards don't really apply because they relate to construction of a structure. One thing that is important, though, is that work on a coastal bank is not to deprive downdrift areas of sediments that come out of an eroded bank. And I think that's what we've tried to do here with sacrificial sand beach nourishment, if you will, recognizing that that's going to be going on continuously, and there's going to be a continuous need for replenishment. So we also included in the Erosion, touched on it briefly about monitoring. We have a monitoring program that we've proposed with the idea that it's going to be very frequent that the sand is going to be replaced on there. So we'd like to set up a procedure whereby we can put the sand back on the face and notify the commission of that without coming back every single time and getting approval to put it on there. The exception would be when there's sufficient damage that there's a structural issue involved, in which case we would notify the commission, come back in and obtain permission to do that work before that work would be undertaken. So
We did analyze graph sample from the area, and there is a sand source available on the island that really matches that for the extent that that material becomes available. I know it's not it's a finite material, everybody's using it, but that's the source it comes from, and when that gets exhausted, that becomes another narrative that we have. Any questions?
Yeah. Okay, so Bruce, actually, you were responsible for bringing one of the first ones
Correct.
to
At Chingo Pond.
Chimo Pond. Pretty successful. Totally different environment, though.
It is, this is more energy.
Right.
And much higher, it's about 3 times higher.
So I think we're all pretty familiar with everything above the, what's that?
The box,
Covering
it's
the box.
the squares.
Right, two, these squares, we can literally start there. However, if we do that, then you're gonna get a little bit of undermine.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do, as the edge gets retrieved this way and moves back and forth, so this becomes the nourishment, not only moving in that both direction, it becomes supplying the crest of the beach at the same time. This is nothing but really like a pillow, a big, huge pillow that you take the sand and then fill it in. It gives it a little bit of a toast to it. So, I mean, there are much different ways to really stabilize the toe, but that's not going what's technically available to me from the material and tested. I've done these in other processes with a certain degree of success. It all depends on how intense Mother Nature gets in the course of next decade or so. So we know we got some years and it gets tough, and some years not so tough. But that gives you a little bit of resiliency, and it's all soft material. It's a double layer, same jute material. We make bags out of it. We fill it up with the same sand, and then we stitch it together and put it in. So it gives that. So that sand is so soft and movable. It gives me a little bit of a fixity to build those.
Yeah, it's like a soft footing.
So is it a large jute bag?
It is.
Biodegradable.
It is. It's almost like a what you call it, synthetic tube. Yeah. But it's really not made out of synthetic material. We know that issue down the shore. There's another issue that's been tried, and we're going to switch to that. That is always a constant issue. But I'm going to try to take this all soft approach, like we did in the other project.
Can you get us spec sheets for this?
Yes.
Just get it with Jeff and do
They
it.
already made. You make them right on the site, or you can buy them pre-made.
Yeah, you depict them square just for the sake of the case.
Exactly.
It's gonna be big size.
Right. You can make them a big crown sausage, however it works.
What is your calculation that
Uh,
your calculation for the
In terms of, we have not done the exact flow calculation. We relied on Woods Hole Group. They have, I included a portion of their report in the document, as you can see. They're showing an average loss per year about, obviously varies because they did some transects throughout the entire area. And our site is exactly right there. And this table is for all the specific sites that goes into that. So that's the transect that fits ours there, and they can say it could be as much as a 6.2. And it varies from year to year, from time to time. And this one is the historic, most recent history, which they say as much as a 68 feet that we lost. November 94. So it's not exact calculation because it varies every year. If we get 2 storms, we lose a lot. If we don't get storms, we don't lose a lot. So we're going to try to weighted average, and we will compute in terms of how much the layer. It depends on the thickness. We would like to have at least 12 to 18 inches. If we put more, then we are in conflict with the natural heritage folks. They don't want us to encroach on the, so I have to balance the process. If I make it too thin, then we are nourishing it 2 or 3 times a year. We don't want to do that. We like to do it once a year, or even less than that. But I think 12 inches to 18 inches is a reasonable amount. But again, we can change that if there is other comments or other issues. And in terms of nourishing it, the good thing is we have an access ramp directly next to the site. So that's the primary access. Means that we don't have to create special access. We have a ramp directly in here. You can come in and do this work directly from the bottom and from the top. It's about 380 feet the frontage, plus or minus.
I have a question about the 2 like buried tubes. Are those they're filled with sand, you said?
Yes.
So if there was some like major storm and some like catastrophic failure, they would end up being able to give sand to the
Yes.
system?
They are porous. We can control the porosity of the, let's say, the canvas that we are bringing. They come in sometimes with inch square opening, they do a quarter of an inch, half an inch. And I like to double them up to give them a little resiliency, but it's enough porous that the sand can come up through.
So on the returns, you're gonna cut into the existing bank.
On the return, yeah, we have to tuck it in. Embankments like this, they fail if the foundation is not correct. They fail if you have overtopping. In this case, it's unlikely that we are gonna get overtopping. And if we just end the ends like this, the flanks will stay wide open. So we have to take the flanks and then tuck them into the embankment reasonably to be able to give us that envelope so we don't get a tank on the side.
How many survey transects do you how many survey transects do you propose for this project?
We are showing three,
Showed
minimum
three
of
on that.
three sections.
Is that what I interpreted? Yeah.
Right, and the existing condition survey was done for us by Blackwell and Associates,
Mhm.
and that's a recent, it was done a few months ago. And of course, conditions change daily,
Yep.
so it's very fluid.
Do you have any bank swallow nests in this?
All the times that we in there, Brad was with me. Brad is a wildlife biologist, and we looked. I mean, the thing is so active.
Yeah.
If any little critters are trying to establish themselves over there, they're going to find out rudely awakening because the next day will be gone. Exactly.
Yeah.
The Nantucket Shuffle.
So the corals sit on top of the, I guess, called tubes, but what happened if we had to repair them with the corals on top? How do you get to those?
We can those things that we can extract them and put new one in. And what we do is we usually put a wrapper around it and we put dovetail anchors because we try to anchor them to the ground. So again, we get some of the.
So the top rows or rolls will stay in place.
But we can cut them because again, it's
Yeah,
easy to
yeah.
cut in place and patch, put that in. The condition in terms of maintaining something like this, it really relies on the maintenance. You have to inspect it twice a year, and any after significant storm, you get on it right away. If you see a small portion, it's got unraveling or whatever, you get to it right away, you fix it, you heal it, and that way you extend the longevity of installation. We have not, because again, I've done this before and I'm doing it throughout. I'm doing tree installation up in Maine, in Connecticut. Now this is becoming a very likable process as part of the living shorelines. And there are some very good contractors that they know how to build, and it's their specialty. Obviously, when we go out there to solicit bids, we want to make sure, like the Wilkinson and Suncoast and those firms, that they specialize in this kind of work, and we will work with them to make sure it gets done.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I live right across the pond from the small pond in Falmouth, so I'm available to come anytime. And of course, as part of our agreement with our client, we can do that. I do have some relationship with some existing small engineering firms that they are capable of doing monitoring on our behalf. So we do have a lot of the tools.
Other questions?
I have one. Just for the record, could you touch briefly on the dry wells that are being proposed as well?
Yes.
We've talked just about the engineering structure, so I just want to make sure that everything gets described for the record.
As part of the stormwater runoff from the roofs and the facility itself, we want to capture that flow, especially during intense storm, because if just let it loose, it'll aggravate the situation. It'll go over and create gullies and further erosion. So we want to take all that flow and surcharge it into the ground, way up from the top of the slope into the existing parking lot, which is all crushed stone. We're going to put some just dry wells with filter fabric. We're going to fill it up with crushed stone, and we want to direct all the flow in there. So that way, essentially, all the stormwater runoff is going deep into the section instead of being released released over here, it's being released down in here, and that's gonna percolate through the ground because it's all sandy material, so we're not gonna get any, rich, water that's gonna create a problem for us.
Yeah, I got, you have one in the back. This computer's freaking out. You have one in the back that, I mean, it drops off, the property drops off the other
Yes.
direction in the back,
Yeah,
which is
we made-
a plus
we
for you
made
guys.
sure that-
Yeah,
With both parking lots.
yeah.
We made sure we are
Pretty
in the
abrupt.
middle, the neutral area.
Yep.
But we are away from their septic system as well, so we can, be within the.
Oh, I know,
guidelines
yeah.
available for,
Okay. How close is that septic to the bank?
Usually, it's not very close to the bank, but, it needs to be minimum of 10 to 12 feet away, so I put them 15 feet away from each other.
Oh, yeah, it looked like there was a leach pit up front there. Okay. Okay, other questions? Questions from the public? Oh. Come up to the microphone and give your name, please.
Hi, my name is Seth Engelborg. I'm here speaking as a private citizen, and I'd just like to point out that the area Coastal Bank the applicant has identified here is a significant source of fossil record. I'm not sure if that's within the scope of the jurisdiction of your commission, or even if it's in the scope of natural heritage, but the Coastal Bank, where this project has been indicated or been applied for, as one of the largest fossil and protofossil records on all of Nantucket Island. So I was wondering if any type of survey or report could be done about that activity before the engineering structure goes into place.
So I,
Thanks. Oh, please, yeah.
we have not done that specific study. However, through our recurrent visit of the site, collecting sediments and monitoring it, I personally, nor anybody from our team, has really observed any specific fossils, because we are used to, on projects where we have archaeological explorations, fossils, and so on and so forth, to do that. But again, for the amount of time that I've been there, I have not observed anything of significance or any close to that.
Yeah, I have photos from that site that I could provide to the commission if necessary. They may have been from before some of this significant erosion happened in the first place, so we might have already lost that resource. And again, I'm not sure if it's exactly relevant for the scope of the Conservation Commission, but it's something that we should keep in mind at least. Thank you for responding.
Thank you. Are you reshaping the bank at all?
We are, yes, the bank is.
Yeah, so
we're
mostly
gonna
just
get
from
it
the,
to a point that we can work with.
yeah, okay,
Again, we're battling between losing
right.
to natural heritage. And I think one thing that should be pointed out is that as this bank continues to erode, we're losing the fossils that are in there. This will help protect what's still there.
Yeah.
And in the course of us doing the work, we can make that as a condition to whoever we hire eventually to do it. It becomes a line item that if they see something or whatever and think they take it out, preserve it, record it, and make it available.
So if I could, I will on this because we've actually had this question before. Is archaeological records, while not directly within the purview of the commission, is something that when DEP does take in these filings, and I think the most recent one we've seen was the in-town bike path for Kansu Springs, where when they do their initial review and refer it to any other applicable state agencies or requested to go any other applicable agencies, at times if it's been flagged or mapped, it'll end up in the hands of Massachusetts Historical. I always get their name wrong, but it's close enough. But yes, I always want to say association, but that's not correct, but it's the commission. So those do get referred to them from time to time. I know of another project that was similar to that was the hatchery at Brant Point. When that was redone, that was referred to them for review. So it is something that they look at that's not directly covered under the Wetlands Protection Act. So I'd be happy to, I know I speak to Mark fairly regularly at DEP to see if it was something that was flagged for them and something that they looked at. And they're usually happy to say yes or no. So we can try to find that out a bit more if they have any other guidance from there. But it's something that's not directly tied to the act.
Yeah.
Super interesting, but it's not necessarily
Right.
directly tied to the act.
Other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land Council. Just a few questions for clarification. Again, I think it would be helpful to have some additional calculations just to demonstrate how the erosion rate matches up with the proposed nourishment. I think the 3.2 average, long-term average was used maybe through 2015, but I would just be interested if there is more recent erosion data and how that matches up with the proposed 12 to 18 inch template, just to again make sure that the site is going to see that annual average nourishment volume each year. And then also the other question or concern that I had was just in relation to the posts that are in front of the core tubes at the base of the structure. Obviously, this is a higher wave energy environment than some other places where these installations have been put in place, and I understand the need for them, but I guess my concern is just in those larger storms, what is the potential for those posts to be removed and to become kind of loose in the environment as well? I'm not really sure if there's a specific way that they're anchored or set in place. I think 5 feet on center, so I'm not sure how many total posts that ends up being, but just if there was a large event, my concern is what would happen with those. And then along those same lines, I'm just trying to remember how many of these installations typically include those posts, and it might just be worth having the conversation so that you guys can make the determination about this not being a coastal engineering structure or such as you proceed. Just because, again, I think given this environment, I understand engineering-wise that that's an important component, but just thinking about the worst-case scenarios out there. Thank you.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. That's like 60 posts or so.
But the post will be put deep enough.
Yeah.
So when we get a severe storm, we will reasonably can estimate how much sand is going to be lost.
Yeah.
So they will not become floatsam jets.
Yeah.
So we put them deep enough. So if that happens, then we can get back and we make the repairs necessary. In terms of the sand cover, absolutely. It behooves us to maintain the sand cover on the core logs because we don't want to replace the core logs. And if they get exposed to sunlight, it will be decorative. So by maintaining that sand cover, which is constantly going to become part of the reporting process, and putting the right amount, it kind of helps us instead of going to do that for any protect the structure.
And again, we're balancing the loss of each to the sand nourishment and the steepness. But the idea is, because of the monitoring, we're going to monitor the spring and the fall after every significant storm. And if the sand layer gets down to like 6 inches above the core logs, then you're going to have the erosion. So over the course of the year, if the 12 to 18 inches isn't sufficient in and of itself for the downdrift contribution, there's going to be more put on.
This kind
It's
of
not a single application.
this type of installation, it's not an application. You put it and you walk away. Put it in, you got to monitor it, you got to make a permit to maintain.
But by the way, that was one of the questions from Natural Records.
What do we think about these posts?
As an engineering structure, there's a lot of posts before. They're 6x6s, but
Thought usually when we had posts and things with these sorts of quar that we did lean towards engineering.
I
Towards
don't know if we did in
CES.
your last one, the last project you did with
It
us.
was the same thing, because
Right,
the core logs come in 10 to
remember
12
if we
foot
did.
sections.
yeah.
So I like to have 2 per each,
Mhm.
so they don't twist and turn. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to use some non-biodegradable material to tie them together. Sometimes we run a big long line and we tie everything back, but then I'm using steel, I'm using other stuff. If I use anything less than that, it's not gonna survive. But the posts, they do a fairly good job once we install them in, and installing them down all the way, you're not gonna see them visible. And we put them deep in it, so then they're not gonna get lost during the storm.
I guess the other question, I mean, these buildings are pre-1978, correct? Yeah, so,
Right.
That was a
those posts
Sandra,
were
That was
above
different,
ground.
but that
Yeah.
was above the surface
But the
post.
posts,
Yeah, right, yeah. No, like
we
I
make
said,
them wide
they,
enough, again, just the necessary so I can stabilize the core log. I don't wanna make them any tighter,
Mhm.
because I don't wanna create a solid wall. Then we are talking a structure, but in this case, it's just an anchor.
below grade, hopefully.
But
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's, I was thinking that it's
I
true.
mean,
those-
they
those structures
qualify.
Qualified anyway.
yeah, the main club building is from 1940.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah, they had a pool out that way at one point.
got the pool,
They lost that pool.
they moved it
They
back.
moved it back.
Yeah,
when
the
they put
pool
it-
got
yeah.
moved.
It's
Now,
behind it,
the
yeah.
smaller pool, it used to be here with the big deck around it, the pool is back there now.
Yeah.
And there is no more room to go anywhere in that direction.
Right, is this the first time they've done protection of the? Yeah,
Yeah, it's been,
exactly.
I mean, they had it quite a bit of land,
Yeah,
but as it gets narrower
But they
and
never-
narrower.
they've never
now
come
you
in front of
can
us, I
see
don't
the
remember,
end of
yeah.
it.
In the 90s, they picked up other lawn buildings and moved them.
Yeah.
When they actually did 180 degrees, or 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Put it in operation. They've been trying all along.
they've been trying, yeah. Okay. Other questions? Other questions from the public? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bert Balkan. I'm here as a private citizen, but I'm as a volunteer from Mass Audubon. I know we do have plover habitat that's down the beach towards Sacagawea Pond, and we have roped that off. And I would ask that the applicant would have an expert come in, just make sure that, because the plovers are known to migrate over a mile, foraging for food, and so I don't know if that's within the mile, but I would ask that they would, somehow come up with some answers to that. Also, I've seen peregrine falcons actually on some of the debris that's come off the bank over time. I've seen peregrine and snowy owls in that area. So I think it's important for the applicant to, have some kind of study done that makes sure we're not going to impact those birds. Thank you.
But Tommy, you want to get on this right away?
We have until, we are on the latest, development.
No, I was wondering about the project.
Mark.
I got the word.
Yeah, we gotta catch the next ferry, so we wanna do it.
You gotta do it between now and then. I was impressed.
Get your tools.
I like to look at the watch.
If, should we get the approval and all that stuff, everything is okay, we won't start until, after the season, October 15th.
Mhm.
We can get a project like this done within that 2 months.
So not for nothing, and to Mr. Balkan's comments. Typically, projects like this that are in Met plover habitat come with that time of year restriction around their nesting season. So we usually see restricted use really primarily from kind of May 1st to September 1st, but that can
Right.
extend all the way from like April 15th to September 15th for what's going on. So I know Natural Heritage hasn't issued their final determination yet, but I would be astounded if that wasn't included in there for a time of year restriction without some sort of very specific sign off from the Commission and Natural Heritage if there was some sort of crazy storm June the 5th that, put the structure into shambles, that there would be the ability to get through that time of year restriction. through a process. It's usually how they, you send in what you need to do, and then they approve it, and the commission can approve it. But typically, those time of year restrictions for plover habitat are pretty common.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
But the preservation, they have to bring the sand in within like 10 days, right? There's a certain time limit that they have to get sand to work. So what happens if the piping plover in place and they can't get sand on this cover?
So I think that's something that you would design that process to be interactive in a sense that they'd have to come to the commission and explain why there's that delay. And if it's something as simple as, well, we also have to get approval from Natural Heritage to enter that area due to the time of year restriction. A lot of times what Natural Heritage will build in requires it's not really there's not really a certification process, but an expert in the field to come in. So they'd have to bring in an ornithologist to come through and not only observe the site pre and post work, but then if there are plovers that are, I want to say the federal guideline is like 1,000-yard requirement. If they're within that 1,000 yards, that biologist would have to remain on site for the duration of the work. And any time that a bird entered that area, they would have to cease work until the biologist said all clear. That's typically how it's gone before. For projects like this, I haven't really seen it too often for when there's those catastrophic events. If you have a catastrophic event like that, birds usually disappear for a bit. They're smarter than the rest of us, and they get away and find somewhere safer to hide for a while, and then have to reestablish territories and all those fun things. So they're a little bit more dynamic, but they have foraged through. I know once on the project further south, there was a bird that drifted south of the Hoyks Hollow access, and that was a kind of a 2-day stop because they couldn't travel through that area one of the days because they couldn't get someone to escort them through, and then the other day because they had some weather-related issues. But it's something that they have had to do before, so it's a pretty well-established practice.
Yeah.
Same reason why we have our guy that gets to walk people out to their houses on Esther Island if there's birds. So it's a manpower-driven process for sure.
Right. Okay. Okay, so we're waiting to hear from Heritage on this. So.
Yes, they requested more information.
Right.
So we don't have our determination from that at this point.
We will prepare a response and do the basic calculations, some of the comments that you all made, and we will respond to that. So we'll make that available. Hopefully by the next hearing.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, we'll continue to the
22nd.
22nd.
Is the next hearing.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, manager. Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, Tree Rock Realty Trust, 28 Gardner Road. Good evening.
This is at 28 Gardner Road. It's a notice of intent to abandon the existing septic systems on the property and tie into the municipal sewer. The proposed work will all be out. What's the resource area on the site? There's a large wetland system to the rear of the property, and then there's a ditch that comes through an embankment, and it flows out into here, and we had previously delineated this wetland as part of that ditch system. No water, there's no stream, but it had wetland vegetation and wetland soils, and so we kept that same delineation. We kept that same delineation from previous filing, and we're maintaining a 50-foot setback from any wetland areas. The proposed work calls for there's a septic and a septic tank in this area that's associated with a cottage. And then there's a whole nother septic system on the other side of the house. And both the house and the cottage will be tied into the municipal sewer that is within Gardner Road. There's already 2 spurs, what do they call them, studs, coming off the sewer onto the property. Anyway, so they're already installed, and we just have to tie into them. The tank and the septic system will be everything will be pumped, and those will be removed, and then the area will be restored. As a procedural thing, we have gotten it had to go to Natural Heritage. It's gone to Natural Heritage. It's been reviewed and been okayed. No adverse impact. No take. And the other thing is we got a phone call from Joe today saying that she needed a stamp plan. This is labeled draft, and it shows both the connection to the cottage and to the house. And as part of this review by this sewer department, they wanted 2 plans, one for the cottage and one for the house. So this plan shows all the work, and we provided you with 2 plans, one showing just the connection from the cottage and one the connection from the house, and a miniature. So I think we've satisfied everything. It's the same work. It's just this plan for discussion does show it more clearly and everything. We will put up a silt fence before we start. All disturbed oils areas will be loamed and seeded after completion. And basically that is my presentation. It's a little bit easier than the last one. Maybe. We'll see.
Just question about the property. Is it like covered in weeping love grass?
Yeah, I think
That's what I'm seeing in
Yeah.
the photos. Okay.
that's,
Yikes. It's like the whole place.
well, it's just in this corner back in here. And I think
The corner near the wetland.
that had been lawn, and they reseeded it
So which corner?
for that. Right in this area where the work is proposed in here,
Okay.
this had been lawn prior to the last notice of intent. And when they did the work,
Thank
they
you. This
seeded
meeting
it
is being
with
video
So
and audio
I'm just wondering,
recorded.
because that looks like
As we
that
know,
is
we
the
have a
area
lot
within
of
the
special
wetland
road work
boundaries.
going on, and upcoming,
wetland.
we've
Or
got
within the
sidewalk
Within the
work
buffer zone.
Sorry.
happening from Coffin Street to Salem Street.
that's-
That work,
Oh,
I think, has
that's
started.
concerning. Did they have
We've got
permits to
some
seed with that?
roadway repaving from some
To
sewer
switch their lawn out?
projects, and that is all listed on the agenda. Lot of things going on.
That's the way they did
We
it.
also have our 2019
Yeah,
committee,
under
board,
the
and commission
previous
vacancies.
regulations.
We have
That's
our
when they put
first
the
public
septic
hearing
tank
on
system.
applications for that on
That's
May
what they seeded
22nd.
with.
The second public hearing
It's
is on
not
June
involved
5th.
with their
And
landscaping.
appointments are made on
Yeah.
That
June
was
19th, so if people are interested in any board, committees, or commissions, please check out
within
the
the
town
last
website. There's lots of
8
things
or
to look
10.
at there. And lastly, it's not on the agenda, but we do have a pond forum tomorrow,
I
Thursday,
don't
May
remember
2nd, from
specified
6
that
to
it
8
not
here in
be
this room.
replanted
Public
with
is
road grass.
Yeah.
Eradicate.
I would say, a native species, just because that stuff spreads everywhere. Yeah, and if they kind of just haphazardly decided to switch their lawn out and put in weeping love grass, that wouldn't be okay.
I don't know.
I mean, they're so slow at putting things that are.
No.
No. And we certainly would never allow it within, the 50 foot.
No, for sure, for sure. I just didn't know where we were. I know it was being considered.
If it's mowed, will that eradicate it?
No.
It'll thicken it. Okay. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about it. So.
No. Yeah, it's pretty aggressive. I would say all the disturbed areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. sewer. But yeah,
It's negative, they have to put grass.
I think it's old after a while.
I was sort of looking at you, but
Okay. Other questions? Any questions from the public? Okay. Do we have,
This is one of the few. We do have all of the
we
required
have all the
information.
file numbers on this one?
We're about to hit the land of disappointment.
Yeah, I noticed that. Okay, so would you like to close? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can condition it.
I think we're gonna go through a lot of those here briefly.
Yeah.
We had it.
No,
Okay.
don't be jealous. They didn't get their number today. No one got their number today.
I sent out a last minute.
Please.
So did we. And-
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We have a meeting.
Candace Haight, trustee,
Yes.
20 Brant Point Road.
Thanks.
And they're gonna recuse themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, representing the applicant Candace M. Hay, trustee. Essentially, an application on behalf of Mason and Candace Hay, property owners of 20 Brant Point Road. This is a interior lot on the Brant Point Road loop, if you will, located in Brant Point. It is a parcel of land that is completely within land subject to coastal storm flowage. And in this case, we do actually have a bordering vegetated wetland that traverses the easterly boundary line of the property. It's depicted on the attached plan. So land subject to coastal storm flowage, and we're within the buffer zone to the bordering vegetated wetland. This is a request for a 53 square foot addition, first floor, onto the existing boathouse. It is shown, there are photos of the boathouse in the packet, and then the plan itself that you see before you, the addition is shown in red here. At the time the boathouse was permitted, the wetland line was further to the east, but the addition itself, as currently proposed, is outside of the 25-foot no disturb and also the 50-foot no build. So the addition itself, even with a current wetland delineation, which was done by David Haynes just this past February, the addition is outside of the 50. The site is not located within jurisdiction of national heritage. The risk of being very brief, that is the application. So the red addition that you see, be happy to answer any questions that you may have. It would be a flow through, depending upon what's the other, if necessary, depending upon what the other building, as long as it calculates up what the other would be. It's as I said, as long as the total area of the site has enough pass through, that's what it would be. No change in grade proposed. It would be built basically onto the existing lawn area. And unfortunately, they do not have a DEP file number.
Yeah. Looks pretty straightforward. Okay. Questions from the public on this? No? Okay, well, I think it's pretty straightforward, but we have to continue to the 22nd. Would you like to?
Yes.
Request a continuance to the 22nd? Excellent.
I would say if you guys would like a positive order for that next time.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll fess
No
up. I
problem.
drafted it for this time in hopes that some
A
miracle
number would show up.
but no such luck.
Okay, we'll continue to the 22nd. Thank you. Rebecca M. Gilbert, ETAL, 92 Hubert Avenue, Olbert Avenue, pardon me.
afternoon, Mark Ritz, Site Design, representing the applicants at 92 Halbert. This is the Bug Light property. The wetland line depicted on the plan was basically taken from a historic line. At the time that we were looking at the site, there was a bit of flooding in the area. It was hard to make a more accurate determination. We're not, as applicants, we're not terribly concerned with the exactness of the delineation for our purposes. We'll leave it up to the commission, but we don't really need the line to be confirmed for what we're proposing, we think. The project is really to take the two existing bug lights, which are cottages, and elevate them on new foundations in place, basically pick them up a little higher, put them on flood compliant foundations.
Just to,
no changes to
I
footprint
don't
or
know.
anything like that.
I don't think we don't
Place.
want to get too deep into
New
this because it's not on the
foundation,
agenda,
that's
but
it.
I don't think there's
We're also
any
proposing a
talk
little
that
bit of
the
work
board is
on the,
suing Vineyard Wind.
existing
The wording on the
residents
executive session
there.
agenda is
The
very
work
specific because
consists
that is
of,
the wording for
basically
the
a
exemption from
second-story
the open
addition,
meeting law to be able
no
to talk
change
about
in
things
footprint
like
there either.
potential legal
Just
strategy
going straight
surrounding
up
something.
within the existing
So there's
footprint, no
that.
changes
There
to
have been
that
a number
foundation.
of public
No structural
hearings,
changes
forums
on the
already
lower
about
portion.
Vineyard Wind here on the island,
And
in connection with
this
the
is
various
either,
regulatory
portions
approvals
of
that
these
Vineyard Wind will
buildings are
need.
inside
We can certainly
25 to
ask the energy
50,
coordinator to set up
however that line
some kind of a
is. These have
listening
been
session.
there
I'm sure
for-
she would be
They
happy to do
predate
that.
the
And
Wetlands
any
Protection
questions
Act.
that anybody
They
has about
predate
the
most
project
things. They've been
and
there
where
for a
we are
very
with it
long
right now can
time.
certainly be directed to
The
her.
surrounding lawn area has been there for a long time. We're not proposing any grading, we're not proposing any other changes, just really flood compliant foundations.
Slab on grade.
Either slab on grade, if we can get away with it, or piers.
The groundwater's right there.
Yeah.
The groundwater
Yeah,
is right there.
right there.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we can do, we can certainly do piers. I mean, the
Pretty
one,
teeny too.
the one up front,
Yeah.
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 the
No. Sure, I'm just-
Yeah, the one up front
Realistic.
doesn't have the same groundwater issues necessarily, but the one in back, it's certainly rather high groundwater
Yeah.
there. And we can do piers on one or both.
Like the gravel, maybe. Yeah.
What landscaping is there around that cottage?
It's basically lawn, it's all lawn area, right up to the brush line, which is native vegetation.
Okay.
And we're not proposing any changes.
So I'm assuming this will be all native plants, or we'll condition it?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just existing lawn.
I'll be honest, when we did our site inspection, the two little beds that are labeled landscaping, right now it's pretty much nothing. It's kind of, you can tell it's a planting bed, and that's about it. Looks like they probably plant it yearly, and
It was a nice idea to take.
yeah, it's not lawn, but it's
But that's almost what I worry about more. Like if they're putting in annuals every year, then they're fertilizing the heck out of them to make them look good in a soil environment that you shouldn't have those sort of plants. So I think if we can condition native, that would be.
Absolutely. If commissions like native plantings there, certainly do native plantings. Grow some blueberries or something. Tasty.
Swamp. Brew barn.
we'll definitely get plenty of water.
Other questions? Questions from the public? Yeah, well, we have to continue on this one as well.
No number. So
No
this,
number, so continue, would you like to continue
do you guys want a positive order for this one?
Yeah.
For next time too?
Yes.
So, were any questions?
Continue to the 22nd? Okay. We will continue to the 22nd.
Will you be
Thank
around? Foundation by then? If the commission would like us to do peers, we will do peers. So.
Well, why don't you just send us what you guys want to do, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm Marina
given
Juve. I'm with the
wet-
Chamber
wet
of Commerce.
of the area,
I just
that would
wanted
make everybody
to
more
come here tonight and thank
We can
all the
submit
public
a
safety
revised plan
departments
that calls out
for an
the piers.
amazing 45th annual Daffodil
Yeah,
Festival.
it's gonna be difficult.
And that I just want to say that we
Liquid
really couldn't have
sand.
done it without the cooperation with the police and fire departments. And also thank the DPW for all of their assistance with the new recycling program out in Sconset. And that we're looking
So-
forward to working together again next year.
It's gonna get fun. Okay, Edwin Snyder Realty Trust, 2 Brox Court.
Hi there, Megan Perry. I just wanted to thank this board for
It's always fun.
Always fun. Well, like it.
We've missed you.
thank the board for their appeal of the Natural Heritage decision to dismiss the town on standing. I know the town didn't win that appeal, and I would hope that this board might further appeal that on standing, because it will help the town later on with future developments. So if the board would consider appealing the appeal decision, that would be wonderful. I know Land Council was successful, and it would be great to have them at the table to help fight over developments like this. And then I had a second comment. I was looking at the agenda. There's some contract renewals on here, but there aren't figures, like dollar figures with them. They're extensions. How do you know what the
They're existing contracts that are already in place, and they're just being extended because the expiration dates are coming up.
So it doesn't cost any more to extend our contract. Awesome. Thank you.
I don't think there's probably any property in the neighborhood that doesn't have some sort of ongoing.
I just want to mention 2 things. Of the 2 contracts that do have a dollar amount, the first one is Finance Department with OpenGov. OpenGov is a vendor that we are already using for some applications on the town website, and this is a budgeting software that we've been looking at, and I think you're really going to like it when we're going to give you a demo of it after we've got it set up and underway. It's going to help vastly, we think, with the development of the town budget and transparency. Public wanted to look at it as we move forward.
As mentioned,
And
this
the
particular
other one is
project
the
has
next
had a
one
long
down.
history.
It's for
In
HR,
the
Human
slide
Resources
narrative,
with HR
there
alternatives.
was a bit of
This is the contract that
inadvertently
we
incorrect
secured
information about
with
some of
the
the
community
sequencing
compact
of some of
grant funding
the
that will look
work
at
that was
our
done
existing
here,
human resources
who did
policies
it
and
and
procedures
when.
and the evaluation of
I mean,
plans,
the
collective
long and
bargaining
short of it
process.
is that a
So that
previous
was something the
property
board
owner had
has been talking about for quite a
picked
while.
up the
and we got
existing
this
house,
grant
moved
a
it
few months
further
ago,
away,
had to
and
get
constructed
some
an
quotes
addition,
to find a vendor, and so
occupying
now
the majority
we're
of
ready to move
what
forward,
was
and hopefully
previously
we will have
the
a
original
report
house footprint, which is shown
from
in
the
orange on
group
the plan.
prior
That's
to
where the old house
collective
used to
bargaining
be.
starting this fall.
The current owner then did some additional work, including a deck, stone patio, and a retaining wall that was done very soon after the construction a number of years ago. And we have been before the board previously trying to address that, as well as a number of other issues and items that have cropped up on the property. What we're really trying to achieve here today is to get the existing work authorized. Most of the structure, the house.
Good evening. So we're
in
asking
addition to the
today
house
for
is
you to
within
approve the interim
previous
loan
footprint.
for the septic
A good
management
chunk of
program.
the deck is within the
At
previous
last
building
year's town meeting, we
footprint.
approved a loan of up to $2 million
Patio
through the
is
revolving fund.
It's
The interim
just
loan has 0%
outside
interest.
of,
The final
well,
permanent
portions
loan
of it are
will be
outside of the
will be
25
2%
to the wetland on
This is
our
to start the
property. There
process
has
to allow the
recently
Board of
been a
Health to start
delineation on
funding
the
some of
abutting
the
elder
approved,
property, which basically
septic systems
the
additional
wetland
round of
line that
funding.
was delineated
So this is the
there
first step,
within the
so that we'll
last
be able to draw
year
on
or
this.
so surrounds the entire house. And, you know, again, all of these areas have for decades and decades been maintained as lawn areas, as developed use areas. So it's a relatively recent reinterpretation of soils and your wetlands bylaw that has kind of push these areas to be considered wetter than they used to be considered. When this work was originally performed, there was on the books a valid wetland delineation that kind of skirted the property line. And most of this work, if not all of this work, would have been located, at least the structural components would have been located outside of the 50. Had approval been sought at that time, in all likelihood it would have been granted. But it was not, and in the intervening years there have been some changes, so we are now in a situation where this stuff is closer to jurisdiction than it had been when it was actually constructed. Brian Madden delineated the wetland on the property, and we have, it is basically encompassing almost the entirety of the lawn area. As Sarah mentioned, we are willing to discontinue maintenance on, the majority of that area to let it go back to a native condition. We're not proposing any new or additional structures, dewatering, anything else here. We're just trying to keep the work that was there. The location of the existing driveway, we were just reviewing historical photos of the site, and that's been there since, the original house going back years and years. That hasn't really changed any. That's where the parking and driveway area has always been. So there's no real change in the use there. And again, most of these, I've reviewed NHA photos going back to the early 50s, early mid-50s, and this area was animal pasture, paddock. There was some kind of building here, and there has been a long history of use and alteration here. So this was not, a pristine, undisturbed wetland in the past. This is an area that either has become wetter or has just been reviewed to be wetter.
I don't have a good answer for that.
So that's where we are. And
truck parked there. They took a picture of it, sent it to Amy, and so she came out, looked at it, said it's fine, but really to cover all your bases, you really shouldn't ask for a waiver.
So I guess considering the fact that there are things like the patio within the 25, my feeling is asking you guys to remove structures that have been put in is, just not going to help anybody at this point. But I would rather in the wetland area see a little bit of an attempt at restoring a wetland, doing some wetland planting, rather than just letting the lawn grow in and see how it goes.
Madam Chairman,
because I don't know that that's the proper mitigation for some of these structures in the 25.
In your packet, there is a cover sheet about this item, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We've been
I think it would be more of a wetland restoration project essentially,
for their establishment,
so that it's clear that that's
I think maybe town
what's
council could give
there.
a quick summary of it. And maybe point
Just
out some of the
because there
policy
are,
issues that the board might
structural elements where we wouldn't necessarily permit them. Maybe look at some ideas for some restoration in there.
Certainly something that could be reviewed.
I don't know how the rest
No,
of the
I
commission.
tend to agree with that. I mean, the house has been, the plus that the house was moved forward. I'm wondering, do we still have the same situation with a sump pump in this place?
I believe all of that has been
figured out,
previously removed and dealt with under a series of various enforcement actions.
A lot of activity.
Years.
Yes,
Come in and
correct.
verify that it had been taken
That it
out.
was gone.
Yeah,
But
it
then
was.
I'm looking and there's a temporary car structure now on one of these plans. It's just perpetual things in, things out.
That has all been addressed as well. We have removed.
I will tell you the site right now is the structures without. I know there's a fence shown on one of the plans, and that all of that is removed. I know we met Brian out on the site to go over his soils data with him present to review his line and feel comfortable with. I know it's weird to say this. The line's actually pretty short on the property to review because the rest is there, but we looked at some of the rest of the areas as well. Try to take a look at that catch basin again, but it's under a lot of water. So,
It's not flowing, we don't think.
No.
anywhere.
But it's a lot standing there. So
It's an ornament.
it's tough right now. I would say that the site is in its greatest state of compliance that I've seen on that site since we've been kind of involved.
I mean, even if you kept it, like with perennials, you could put like blue flag iris and have some great swamp milkweed. I mean, there's potential to do, yeah, a nice, almost, you know, wetland garden back there.
Yeah.
But it would need to take a little thought.
We can discuss that there.
Is there a general feeling about the? Do you have a thought? You have thoughts?
Not really.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna have 3 weeks regardless.
Yes.
We don't have a top number, so.
I think if we go down that route, that would provide some benefit to restoration and hopefully offset some of the historical alterations here.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think anyone at this point is talking removal. I like the planting idea.
We can certainly do something down that path.
Okay. Other questions? Any questions from the public? Please come forward. Your name, please.
My name is Marcia Fader, and I'm the butter to Brooks Court. I live at 36 Liberty Street. And I guess I have a couple of different things. I have some questions and maybe some comments, but I also just wanted to, first of all, draw your attention to a letter that Greg and Carol Elder abutters had submitted. And I don't know how you normally do this, but they did ask that it be read into the minutes. It's kind of a lengthy letter, but they have some comments and some requests.
I don't know. I mean, it would be submitted, we can, well,
Yeah, it was
continue
submitted, so-
anyway, so we're actually gonna get it, it will be put into our file and we'll read it, yes, we'll definitely read it.
I know we distributed it via email, and it will be added
Yeah.
to the. This is obviously going to get continued to the next hearing, so it'll be
Great,
included in the
because I do
packet on
think
there as well.
That was pretty much their last request, was to have a continuance because the notice was very short for them and they
Yeah.
were not able to be here.
Oh, no problem, so you-
I am not them, but and I did also draft a letter from myself
Okay.
as an abutter, and I think that there are a couple of basic comments. One is that a continuance would be great. It would give people time to take a look at what has been submitted because most of us kind of saw this yesterday and I didn't even receive a notice till today. So be that as it may, that a continuance would be great. And I think that one of the concerns, which may or may not be relevant to the whole big picture of the long history, is that what was presented in the NOI was not accurate information about the sequencing. And I know what's happened has happened, but in terms of what owner did what, those of us who lived close by understand that a lot of the work was done by the current owner, and a lot of it was done by Edward Toole, the prior owner. And that we just felt that it would be misrepresentation, that at least to get the corrections would be great to have an accurate record, state exactly what the history is. I think that on the heels of the Elder property being delineated, I think everybody is, I think they're going to be very pleased to see that there's a new delineation here, that we're not looking to the neighboring Printel property, which was delineated in that edge in 2007. And so that was another question of mine because I don't really understand. I know, excuse me, that Mark is calling that a historic ordering, but you know, he's calling that a valid wetland delineation. And I didn't think something from 2007 you know, and a lot of what is in the NOI is based upon a neighboring wetland delineation from 2007, which stopped at the property line and was performed by David Haynes. And so it really doesn't present a case for saying, oh, if they had applied in 2013 or 14, because I don't believe it was valid as of 2007.
We can go back in a
I
year.
think that the idea of what I think is known generally as an ecological restoration would be a fantastic idea, rather than, because I think most of us know if you discontinue maintenance to a lawn that's there, what native plants are going to come back are just going to have a field of Japanese knotweed and some purity, you know. So I think that would be a fantastic thing, and I think that it would help the owners themselves, because it would definitely take out a lot of the water, the drainage problem that's happening there. I think that one of the biggest questions will be
Zero. Potentially being 0 to 3, going off on the road. Just my quick thoughts. So I'm happy to hear that we can come back and with the vendor.
And I think the only other question was, which has come back and forth, and I know that it's on wheels, but there is a chicken coop, and it's never left the property.
Well, I suspect that would be in our conditions once again. Yeah. Right, I don't think at the moment, but if there's a coop still rolling around, I didn't see it on the plan.
So I think I can address a couple of those, because some of them are more general questions that aren't site specific. They're more of a process question. So to get to the sequencing of events, because this is something that we see on other sites as well, the way the act works, especially when you're dealing with any violations and how those events go, is violations an issue of non-compliance run with the property. They don't run owner to owner. You can't by selling it to someone.
Historic.
Yes. Thank
I
you. I'm glad you guys remember me. So the line that was put forward, and again, this is something that we see pretty frequently, is you don't always have access to abutting pieces of property for the purposes of delineation. Sometimes wetlands are off-site, sometimes they're across the street, some things that are there. You don't always gain permission to go delineate. So there was a line that was reviewed by the Conservation Commission along the property line that ran with it that was approved in 2007. So the way the permit structured from the order of conditions is that line was then valid for the minimum of 3 years. So that order of conditions ran from 2007 to 2010. So anytime in there that line was used, it's a legally valid line. Yep, so I was getting to that. So what happened in there is the governor during the recession passed the Permit Extension Act, which extended from essentially from 2000 2-year extension and then a second 2-year extension. So any permit that was valid between, I will butcher the dates, but I want to say it was between April 8th. So a permit like this that ran from 2007 to 2010, then all of a sudden runs from 2010 to 2014. And then to top it all off, it didn't happen in this case, but it was potential. You were still then eligible to apply for regular extensions under the Wetlands Protection Act. So we were seeing permits, and it was possible to get a permit that was essentially valid for 10 years. You can make a case in dynamic resource areas, so eroding coastal banks, dune systems to require newer delineations to those, more fixed resource areas, I'd say. That becomes a little bit more problematic to try to go down that path. So there would have been a valid line when the first shovel hit the ground in 2014. Now, moving forward into 2015 and 2016, you probably would have been outside of that window. Be that as it may, that's how the timing and sequencing kind of goes together. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Because I will tell you, I'm so glad the Permit Extension Act is gone, because it was the most confusing thing ever to try to look and go, oh, you missed by 2 days. What's there?
But also wasn't it soils? I mean, what
right.
they used.
So
they weren't using soils back.
Originally started where, and the data forms still kind of reflect it. Originally, it was done really just by vegetation alone. So you're going out to sites and you were just looking and saying, oh, I see hybrid blueberry, that's wet. I see black cherry over here, that's dry. And you're putting your line kind of down the middle. As they looked at it more, they started to add in soil components, and they started to really use soils
through the process, and then they take taxes back out. So you either add in what you did, or take away what you did, depending on which country. Japan does it backwards, but it's kind of interesting that what we're talking about that here, and why they do
that. A lot of our vegetation can be a little marginal and move around a bit, and we're dealing with a lot of altered areas over time. So soils have come in, and then the way we've interpreted soils has changed over time too. So Nantucket is a little unique in the sense that our local requirements have a different depth to groundwater for where we consider to be hydric soils. I wasn't with the commission at the time, but kind of the background to that is there was some concern that given the overly sandy nature of our soils, that groundwater behaved a little differently than you see in a traditional silt and clay soil. So it's something where I know Ms. Fantazi put together a case for the commission to look at it as an 18-inch depth as opposed to a 12 or 14-inch depth that you can see with the Corps of Engineers or with the state. So all of that has kind of come in since, we've seen a lot of sites where it's been lawn or it's been developed area, and all of a sudden when you look at the soils, you're seeing hydric conditions. So that's kind of what we saw on the Elder property. This site's a little funkier, and I think Brian would probably speak better than I would to it, but it's a site where clearly there has been a lot of disturbance on top. I mean, there's like buried horizons for buried horizons before you get to kind of the native parent material there. There's a weird layer that's seemingly like brick and charcoal in spots. Like it's a weird, highly disturbed site. So it's tricky to do. So I'm glad I didn't have to do the level of augering that Mr. Madden probably had to do across that site to get to where he did. So, but that's kind of the practice for delineating.
Right, so historically, back when, probably would have been the accepted practice.
It's like we're trying to get clear picture of the site. So what happened here? So, like the Marshall point, the first thing out that I saw when I looked at this too, that we have this, line.
I agree with that. I think it's a natural line, and then they're all very can could be specialized knowledge, maybe potentially the property line. So here, understanding how that possible still. Forcible. Inclusive or possible word so here.
Yeah, so I think in my letter that I submitted, I basically said connect the dots. And it just essentially, and I would just make it clear that wetland hydrology is not static. There's a lot of factors that can influence signs of redox or just estimated high groundwater. That can be upgradient sources, that can be discharge from sump pumps. This site is very unique. As you climb up that hill, the wetter the soils get, which is very strange. The least hydric, the least hydric soils are at the low point of the property. And there's varying levels of fill, historic fill, and deposition, and just strange horizon formation out there. But, yeah, I mean, I looked at existing conditions based on current hydrology.
So oddly enough, and sorry for interrupting, Mark, but to Brian's comment, because I actually looked when we did our field review, the Elder site behaved very similar, where our better hydric soils were on the higher side and on the front of the house, and not in the back where we expected it to be. So there is some work done there. I know in a couple of those spots, obviously there's the shrub in the catch basin, and there's a large tree that was taken out at one point. All kinds of work that's gone on back in there. No, not on that property, but there's been a lot of alteration in that area, and I think it's something where there's probably been material moved and material brought in and a lot of different things that have happened. But it's, yeah, I gotta say, in all the wetlands I've looked at, I think it's the only one I've ever seen where the higher the elevation gets, the better wetland soils
Is
get.
there something like perching the hydric soils above, like?
There is a clay layer here, but there's also on the abutting Fader property, which we look forward to seeing an updated delineation there as well. But there is a pond there that was historically a man-made pond, and it's not lined, so there's clearly a hydric contribution from the pond into surrounding areas.
Yeah, I mean it's
this area here that you were asking about. Keep in mind that the original house that was there had a deep foundation, so there was significant disturbance when it went in and ultimately when it went out. The current house had a crawl space. The original house, it was a pretty deep hole when that came out. I don't know how wet a full basement it was, but it was, there was a tall foundation wall there. So when that was changed over, there was significant disturbance of existing soils in this area. And I think the elder delineation was done up to the property line when it was done, and then Brian picked up ours where available.
And Wilson, a corrected narrative, we had some confusion about sequencing, it was not a misrepresentation.
Not an intentional one.
A misstatement on our part, we'll correct that, but I think as Mr. Kaufman has violation.
Right, I mean. Right. Okay, well, we're gonna continue to the 22nd.
Well, what I think you make sure there's no one else that wants.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
all the players I think have talked. Any other comments from the public? Okay, so we'll continue to the 22nd. Thank you.
Oh, the 20 seconds starting with busy.
I know.
That'll be fine.
Dang. Oh well, it's fine. And you know how the number is. Okay.
Sir, you're winning the
Yeah, I
applicants
know, I
for
kind
tonight.
of love you at
I
this
love
moment.
it. Okay.
Except for the fact we just
So-
added something else to
Okay,
the
so
contract.
Notori LLC, 34 Dukes Road will be continued to the 22nd as well. So now we have the town of Nantucket Jetties Beach.
So I apologize, this was earlier. They wanted to
Or maybe
continue
not.
this to 5/22 because they have they're waiting for Natural Heritage to come back on that for what it is, but they're trying to permit some ADA boardwalks for those properties.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so the
Well, we'd
town
have to
of
go back
Nantucket
to the other one for Bathing
Ian
Beach.
thought they were missing a lot.
Jetties Beach and
Save it
Jetties
all
Beach
for 'em.
Playground.
No, we gotta.
The four
No,
bathing
is
beach.
continued to the 22nd as well. So now we're back up to the top
Yeah.
again. Town of Nantucket 4 Bathing Beach Road.
So this is what we heard quite some. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this,
It's been
this
on
was
every file.
this was the grease trap and
Grease
electrical
trap.
work. It fell into the natural heritage abyss for a while. They got thrown by. It's in mapped plover habitat, and they couldn't wrap their heads around the backside of the building,
Yeah.
and they were concerned that it was potentially going to be impacting breeding piping plover habitat. But they came back with this one with a no-take letter with some conditions that were attached to it for the work on the backside of the building to do that. But that wasn't what we were waiting for from them. So we typically just attach their determination letter to the order permitting the work. So just a reminder, this was an upgrade in electrical service to the back of the building, removing some sand to access the electrical service at the back of the building, the installation of a grease trap behind the building to service the restaurant for there to be somewhere to put the grease instead of the sewer.
So it cleaned out weekly, he said. Gross like that.
No, they in the summertime they snake that pipe daily.
Oh,
I know because they crack the manhole in the driveway to our office, and when I show up at 7:30 in the morning, they're always there. So
Oh, joy.
just snaking that pipe out.
Well, it's also like a heart attack waiting to happen.
They do it. They do it daily. So
nasty. Okay. Any questions? Oh, great. Public comment.
Just let me thought. Emily Mullen for the Nantucket Land Council. I wasn't actually at the hearing when you guys first discussed this, and I've kind of been waiting for it to come back up just to ask about and here I am. The other component that I thought was in here was storm drain in the parking lot, and I didn't see any kind of diagram that documents the.
So that is something I can actually answer this question because Natural Heritage had the same question. That's something that they are actively designing what that's going to look like and how they're going to pump that off-site and get rid of it. So that's going to come in as a separate application.
Okay, so it won't be included in
No.
this.
No, it would not be included in the permit.
Perfect. Thank you.
But I will tell you, it got included on there because they were concerned submitting to Heritage about getting called out for trying to segment a project. So they put it in there and just forgot to tell them that they were going to be filing separately for it to avoid that shenanigan. But it took like 8 months to get.
Okay. So we have everything we need to close on this one. Would they like to close?
Yes.
Motion to close. Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A lot of old ones came up here. Okay, so we have no amended orders or continued, so we're going to. Did I get everything? Yeah. So I'm going to request for determination. 262 Pulpus Nominee Trust, 260 and 262 Pulpus Road.
Brian Madden from LEC Environmental. The RDA is to confirm the wetland resource area boundaries on 262 Pulpus Road, Swains Neck. This property has been before you in the past. It's got a long history. Demarcation of wetlands, and the property was purchased last fall, and so just master planning, we just wanted to reconfirm the wetland resource areas. I apologize, I was gonna color this up and highlight it. There's a lot going on here, but basically a lot of bordering vegetated wetlands that border on Pulpus Harbor, series of intermittent streams, Millbrook Creek, I think mostly everyone's familiar with the bridge that goes, driveway, the bridge that goes up into the site.
The stairs that
Yes, that was probably the most recent application. Stairs. Looking back at some of the older delineations, it's relatively the same. I would say maybe it's crept up slope a little bit in a few locations. There's areas that it does extend into the lawn, up by the primary house, basically up around this location. If you remember that, there's a patio frag right at the edge of the lawn edge, a mild slope up towards the house. There's a couple other areas that it pops out into pastures or lawn areas. But for the most part, it's relatively the same. Boring vegetated wetland system, isolated vegetated wetland here. That's actually the only one. There's a fringing coastal dune up in the northern portion of the property. There's only a few coastal dune flags bordering on Pulpus Harbor, and then it transitions to a shallow coastal bank with a 3 to 4 foot break at slope. The flood zone actually extends further. So it's a mini coastal bank below the flood zone. And we've demarcated the actual limits of the flood zone, mostly associated with elevation 8 and then elevation 10. BU zone for a portion of Millbrook Creek. So, I guess that's the long and short of it. Trying to reestablish.
Generally growing.
What's that?
It's generally growing, the wetland area.
Yes, maybe a little bit.
Not much.
Not much. That's good for their sake.
I didn't have.
Yeah, no.
Just trying to compare, I guess.
Made for a long sidewalk.
Yeah, I was about to say, what a
Those are a lot of flags.
flags there for you.
Yeah, luckily I hit it over the winter, so I didn't have to fight through it.
I will say, actually, when we did our site visit, we actually lucked out because the contractor was starting to work on the most recent permit for the tennis court.
Yeah.
That was being moved, and he had a couple questions and wanted us to take a look at the silt fence that he had just installed, and he had just dug in, and we kind of walked all that with him, and he was all happy that it was in and incorrectly, and so it was nice. We actually ran into everybody there starting work. It was a good visit.
Lovely visit.
Yeah,
It's an awesome property. I will say
It's
one of our
yeah.
favorites to go to for sure.
And I kind of want to get the line approved mainly because I can just see the sticking flags out in the lawn here. It's just disappearing relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Memorialize that, and we can reset.
No, I'll say in the spots that we're supposed to have markers and things, historically, all the markers are still mostly there. A few that are.
A lot of them come over.
Yeah, some of them are grown over. Some of them look like they got grown over and broke. But they're all there and they're being respected. So I think that's the main part of it.
Any questions from the public on this? Your recommendation?
I do. I would recommend a positive 2, verifying the resource areas as shown on the plan. I won't list them all. There's a bunch.
Okay. I'll make a motion.
Good evening. In the in all the plans before, they had agreed to a lot of our requirements. If they're going to be discharging, or someone's going to be hauling it somewhere.
Daniel and
Clean
Linda
Harbor's gonna
Cummings,
have to discharge
32
it
Crooked Lane.
So they may be treating it, taking it to another wastewater facility. Necessarily won't be coming to our facility. So it is a type of discharge, even though it's
Don
being
Bracken
hauled away.
representing the applicant.
So I don't know where they'd be taking it to.
An
but
RDA
maybe that could be
for
clarified by
proposed landscaping
the
and
hauler,
portion
just
of
where
the
they're
proposed
taking it,
driveway.
because that community might want to know where it's coming from.
As you can see on the plan, the southerly portion of the lot was just acquired.
We had some discussions and
from the
everything and
property to the
reviews,
south.
and
That's
the
currently
only thing I
vacant
was
lot.
concerned with was any kind of
There's a plan on file for that
grease or
property to the
oils that
south.
might come out from the
There was an
processing
RDA
equipment when they
file
were cleaning it, if there would be
a few years
discharge.
ago to do some limited amount
They
of
were very
clearing.
precise
there
on
was
their
an
descriptions of
established
how that
level
worked
in the
and
lot.
what water would be reused.
Closest
So
proposed
and they were
work
going to have a
is about
holding tank
78
and everything
feet
like
in
that, so I
isolated
did, and
wetland area.
I had no concerns with what they were doing.
The work within the 100-foot buffer, there's no work proposed within the 50-foot buffer. It includes, as I said, relocating the driveway, adding a privet hedge, some lawn, and some plantings. There was a detailed landscaping plan showing the plant species as well. Most of it outside the 100-foot buffer, but was included in the package. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Don't worry, we'll have their auto cover safe.
Section 4. Any questions? Concerns? Okay. Any questions from the public? You have a recommendation?
We
Jeff, on
took a
this?
tour of the community facility on Friday. What they're using to capture the water is actually basically a dehumidifier, and it drops into a basin that they just recirculate into their thing. When they're talking about discharge or anything like that, it's mostly just the excess water, which would be clean. It would be basically.
Still, these days, I'm still gonna have a
Sorry,
test.
Mark. Water that's about as clean as the Wanacomment Water Company.
Okay, the Matticat Road, Nominee Trust,
the only thing that
234
they're
Matticat Road.
capturing is the water that's coming out
Again,
of the air.
Don Bracken for the applicant.
Which is water, pure water
This is
vapor.
the straight
So that's the
septic
only
system
discharge that they
repair.
mentioned to me
Brian
when I
Madden
was there.
flag.
Nothing with chemicals. They don't use any chemicals.
on-site
They don't use any
wetlands
inorganic
and
fertilizer.
one mostly
So
off-site
that
wetland,
shouldn't be
partially
anything to worry
on-site
about.
wetland
And
in
everything that
southwest corner.
if
Currently,
they're
it has
going
a
to
field
discharge any
septic
sort of water,
system
anything
composed
goes
of
to a
groundwater.
resin filter anyway. So it would be
Consists of an existing tank,
basically
a leaching
pH
trench.
7 pure
Trench
water.
actually falls
Distilled
within
water, really,
50-foot
is what it
buffer.
comes down to.
The proposal is to keep the existing septic tank, install a pump change.
Motion to approve section 1112, request from the applicant.
The buffer. The septic tank will be within the 100-foot buffer, but outside the 50-foot buffer, located in the lawn area behind the house. This is very, very little disturbance of proposed work within the septic.
Questions? No? Public? Okay. Your recommendation, Jeff?
-3.
-3.
Allowing the work without a permit.
Without a notice of it.
Without a notice.
Yeah, still
So
have to have a
close.
permit.
Okay.
That's what we're saying.
That's why I'm still gonna get the drunk paycheck tomorrow.
Getting closer.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Orwinnett Realty Trust, 10 Fargo Way.
Again,
Don's gonna
Don,
keep talking. Oh, go ahead, Don.
Don Bracken for the applicant. This might be the simplest one I've seen. We're proposing to put a fire pit on top of an existing stone patio. Probably most people would have just done it if they didn't ask the question, I would guess, but when they asked the question. We updated the survey, the coastal bank, we're about 71 feet away. No disturbance of vegetation, all work will be on the existing patio.
Questions or concerns? No?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm still kind of amazed this actually came in, but
I know.
good on them. We
looking-
applaud.
They asked me and I asked you.
We applaud. We applaud their honesty and compliance.
Okay. Your recommendation on that
I
one?
don't know if I heard that.
-3.
-3. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Another one? I got one more. I got Albion Ridge LLC, 1 Reed Way. That's what he said.
I didn't go by that name. I gotta have more. see. Anyway, Don Bracken Engineering. Again, this is a septic system upgrade. The existing septic tank and leaching pit is within the 100-foot buffer. The tank is within a 50-foot buffer from a coastal bank. The proposal is to install a new septic tank about 60 feet from the coastal bank and a new soil absorption system much further to the north at the front of the lot. There's other site improvements as well shown on the plan, but outside the 100-foot buffer. That's like 4 in a row. I couldn't. We had that many.
That may actually be a record.
Yeah.
Mike. Any concerns?
It's gonna be on his next advertisement. I got four applications to the Nantucket Conservation Commission in under 5 minutes.
Do we have another -3 recommendation here?
-3.
-3.
Holding it down.
Make that motion.
-3. So.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Boom, boom, boom. Love it. Okay. I love it. Okay. Certificates of compliance. We have one. Tambourine Properties, LLC, 2 South Beach Street.
Yes, this was for those who can't place that. This is the Oren Moore building, and they had constructed the shed behind it. It's their walk-in. That's there. Sorry, I just totally spaced out. It is constructed. It is in compliance. They provided us the plan with spot elevations yesterday. We're able to review it, and the grades didn't change, and we would recommend the issuing of that certificate of compliance.
Okay. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
And real quick on the next one is we did get the plan. That's why we're moving it to the 6th. We just haven't had a chance to review it with the elevations on there for the flood zone.
Okay, so orders of conditions.
Somehow open like 30 minutes. I'm like,
It's fine.
So, let's see, Fort Bathing Beach Road. Grease trap.
yeah, it's the grease trap.
Rename the restaurant. The grease trap.
Yep. So if you look in the if you look at it, you can clearly see the question that came up about the stormwater unit is not included. So just real quickly for conditions, just ask for before and after photos for any of the dune maintenance, as they called it, and then they have to adhere to the natural heritage letter. We'll just attach it to the order because they write really wordy conditions, and I don't like you typing it, so I just attach the letter. Some call it lazy. I call it pushing.
Okay. Yes. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Cuneo, 122 Walwinet Road.
Oh, sorry, I have a dumb condition in there. This was for the elevated walkways and the septic system upgrade out in Walwinet. I forgot to take out the silt fence shall be installed at the time. The entire length of the driveway for the project, but that's not part of this project. And wanted to include one at number 20 that yearly photographs, I can spell, shall be provided to the commission demonstrating the condition of path and walkways of the beginning and end of each growing season. Which is pretty typical to what we've done before. And then just the requirement that any reports that go to the Board of Health get submitted to us too. Which if we ever locate in the same building will be really easy to do.
This is the one that I actually forgot to ask today. There have been boats in like one of the photographs that looked like they were stored in the resource area.
Well, you can certainly put 21.
22.
No boats shall be stored within resource areas.
Yeah, 21 was the photos.
We crossed out 20.
Actually,
oh, we crossed out 20.
We crossed it. I might suggest really quickly with that, actually just thinking about the site. Do you intend that to include, I don't think we should include land subject to historic photos to that. Because that's kind of it's a different animal than the other ones.
Yep.
I just know that flood zone like gets up like right next to their house. Things like that, that if they plunk their kayak next to their house, they would be in violation of that condition.
Yeah, we don't want that.
That's a little extreme. Well, I think that's what was intended.
I think the reason it's so many photos is all the properties connected to that route down there.
Right, and everyone wants
Everybody
but
was at the
still,
end of
once
that
there's
track.
one,
Oh, I
then
agree.
there's
It
10.
was huge amount of boats.
Boats tend to snowball out of control.
Boats.
Once someone stores one somewhere, they
Yeah.
tend to grow other boats.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Madara Creek, 5 Grays pasture.
Yeah, this is the Conservation Foundation project.
I hope they're successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool project myself.
Yeah,
Not
it's
that-
amazing. I've never seen it that bad. I never noticed about it.
Yeah, I couldn't think of any real conditions for it other than a report, but her whole narrative literally just discusses that this is, the purpose is to create a report.
Yeah, for
So,
it's for science.
yeah. But I think it'd be really interesting. I think
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to look at it and see if it's something that we can use to help encourage other people that are experiencing salt marsh loss. I know we talked about that one on the Reddit last time, to maybe investigate and kind of replicate methodologies or something if she's successful. So could be an interesting tool to add to the quiver.
She said she couldn't get vegetation on island, but next year she would get vegetation. So should we put something on that into this?
I mean, if it's included in the protocol that she provided, then that's something that condition 18 kind of incorporates that in there, where we just require them to adhere to all of their provided protocols.
Okay.
So I just don't want to end up hamstringing her inadvertently with sourcing something.
No, I just thought about. No, I know the first time she can't source any that need it, but I think the second season. But yeah, but it's in a protocol.
I mean, we could certainly put maybe a finding that, the commission finds that sourcing native plant material should be attempted at, to the maximum extent possible.
Is it something we could ask, like, trying this year for them to come back in the fall, and then if it's successful, then it's like, okay, now you're gonna grow these plants for next year.
I just want to make sure that's.
Well, how about, let's maybe then add to 19. Do you guys want to add a yearly report including photographs shall be provided to the commission detailing the results of the study, and presented at a regular meeting?
I know it adds something for them, but I think it's good public awareness.
Agree.
knowing Jen is never shy of coming and talking. So I think she'd be happy to do so. She has a couple other cool projects in the work. I don't want to let those free yet, but she has a couple other ones that are working that are really interesting too. So hopefully they'll, I don't know if they'll have to come in for permits, but it'd be nice to get them to come in for some information. I don't know, she'll be a part of, this will be a plug, for the Nantucket Coastal Conference. Jen will be presenting at that for her work that she did out at Hither Creek with the sand accumulation in the salt marsh getting smothered there. So that is the one in either June or July. I can send that around now that the sign-ups are there if people are interested. But there are lots of fun local presenters and some people from
They just sent out that email.
Yep, they
the
did
other
just
day,
send
yeah.
out the save the date for it. So I know Sarah from Linda Loring is presenting. I know someone from our office is going to. I think it's going to be Tara. Yvonne from the field station is presenting.
It's a full day event.
Oh yeah, and then the next day is the historic preservation angle on coastal resiliency. So I got us way off track from orders and conditions, but keep your eyes peeled for that because a lot of that stuff will come up there.
Yeah, sign up.
Yeah.
So
And then keep in mind that following that, the State of the Harbor Forum from the Land Council will be shortly after that too. So that's another excellent one to attend. Got all of my plugs in for the day. Mouth.
Got fist pump for minutes.
I know.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion?
Oh yeah, we should have, yeah.
Motion to issue is amended.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Very good. Andrew Biggio, 155 Wall Winnet.
This was the wall and septic system.
Yeah, the wall. The wall.
Did they need
Oh, go ahead.
to provide photos of revegetation? Septic, or was that like a previous?
Oh no, that would be an excellent condition to have.
Other interests? Happy with this one?
So, for revegetation, that's in the septic area and above the.
So I just include the condition. Sorry, I'll read it back to you now. That I typed it. Is applicant shall provide yearly photographs to the commission demonstrating the condition of the dune vegetation across the site. So it's just need to be able to see everywhere. But I did have the finding where we found that the walls were approved in a different location, built somewhere else. Didn't want to let that disappear into the abyss.
Yep. All those in favor? Opposed? I will pass it unanimously. Fill in the sand real quick.
Yeah, I think all of those are going to disappear in about 2 days.
Tree rock.
Yeah, this was one second.
Yeah, 28 Gardner Road, Tree Rock Realty Trust. This is the hook up into town.
Yeah, where
Yes, this is the love grass.
Yeah,
The love grass.
so much of it everywhere. Yeah.
That's a lot of 19. All disturbed areas. Shall be revegetated. With any I always want to put it at the end of conditions like that too. Some of this is like, in the commission, it encourages the coming in for permits to remove the rest of your permits.
It's just gonna take over the native fescue.
Yeah.
So yucky.
It's funny. There was a time when I remember all the grass was.
Okay.
People actually were like specking it for
I
stuff.
still, people who live behind me put it
Yeah.
all in.
Well, it's getting spec for restoration work because it comes in so quickly and holds and there. I mean, there's sites off of Old Westmore Farm Road that was adjacent to the pond where a lot of them ended up with more grass.
Yeah.
This site ended up with it was everywhere for a while. It's all the rage, and everyone went, "Oh crap!"
Just advertise it as tick habitat.
That stuff
all the
sucks.
way.
Fabulous idea.
All right. Still need a motion on that.
Okay. Do we have a motion for 28 Gardner Road? Motion. As amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Sadly, that's it because nothing else. Yeah, nothing else close.
Yeah. That's what I was like. I didn't miss anything.
No, the rest of them are all pretty straightforward, but we just didn't get any numbers. I even literally looked through the entire meeting in hopes that they would start to magically come in.
Yeah. Complete network. Oh. Okay. So, great. So, other business, approval of minutes. Everybody happy with them?
Very good.
Great. Approved by unanimous consent. Monitoring reports. Smith.
Just the one
12
that was
North Road.
The one that was included.
The one that was included, yes.
So that was 10.
No, but I was sure. Because this still does have the timber bulkhead.
No, sorry. Yes, I was confused. This is the one. Yes.
I forgot that they had like the wood terraces up there too.
Yeah. Or if people want to look at it, I mean, we can simply add it to another agenda again. If people want to look at it, if they have questions, they can. Oh yeah, I've been out there a few times. I need to go out there again. I mean, the report came in, but we try to make it out there every so often because they haven't closed out their permit. It looks a lot like it did before. I mean, a lot of vegetation and stuff on. I mean, all the debris is gone, but the bank. I mean, the bank has historically been fairly well vegetated, so the vegetation that was supposed to be there is still there. So it's. No, I mean, even when we had gone there before, that rock runway was a temporary install. It's just the fact that they temporarily installed it and then dumped a bunch of landscape debris into behind their bulkhead. So
Someone thought they had a fabulous idea.
someone was, you know what? Someone was stoked that they were going to be skipping the C&D scale at the dump with a bunch of masonry debris. They're excited about it. So yeah. So we did actually run into a site the other day that was not jurisdictional, but someone thought they were going to get clever with the drywell and were using leftover bricks and pieces of bricks to create a drywell on site for things. It was outside of jurisdiction at the time, but it's something that we have been seeing more and more. So we're trying to be cognizant of when we're looking at sites for what's happening with construction debris, what people are trying to get sneaky to do to avoid, you know, shelling out a nickel. I wouldn't put past some of them to charge people for the disposal and then just bury it in place somewhere.
And then they're charging someone else for the materials that
Yes.
they're burying.
So we'll see it. But why don't we'll put this one back on the agenda if people want a chance to read it.
Bonfire. That's the fun way to go. Okay. So, enforcement actions?
I don't have any at the moment.
Excellent. Reports? No CPC. No MPEDC. No mosquitoes yet. Commissioner comments? Excellent. Nice shirt.
I will let Joanne know that you guys all approve of our fancy
It is
new
nice.
our fancy new shirts.
I think the color is a great choice.
I think it's pretty cool.
To be fair, I had nothing to do with the choice of design or color or shirt. Is I know far better to interfere with Leah and Tara and Joanne when it comes to picking out uniform pieces.
Yeah.
I just say I get the last chance to veto if it's something that really looks like it's going to be horrific. So. Didn't have,
Yeah,
you know what's
no,
weird? They don't
pink
like pink that much. This is
Nah.
about as much as it gets.
Wouldn't you think?
We even have short sleeve blue ones too. So.
Ugly as shirts at the school.
But you might get to see whoever comes to the pond forum tomorrow will probably get to see a number of other people wearing them
Oh,
as well.
man.
So there'll probably be some of the staff
You get a
there.
swag bag on the way out?
So that is it's still the town, my friend. That is fantasy. You know, I guess you got to get to 20 years with the commission before you get that kind of swag. So.
Oh, gee, great.
Ernie may be getting close, but
Ernie might.
Yeah.
I gotta be careful what I say. He may be actually closer than that.
Okay.
So.
Administrative staff report.
Just as a reminder for the thing tomorrow, and I'll send out links for the other ones. And a plug again, I know the select board, if they haven't already, will probably be putting out for their yearly committee vacancies. I know, yep. So you guys are ahead of me in information. I know there are some people that are sadly moving to other endeavors, which is totally fine. But if people know of people or people that may be interested, last time we did appointments, the selectmen didn't have to choose anybody because they
I
had
think
two
it's been the
seats. There were two seats with two incumbents returning and no one else applied. I know we're preparing for some turnover. I know Ernie has said that he sounds like he may be moving on in the fall into retirement, which is a far better place to be than here. And other people, I mean, it's a task and it's a lot to do. But if you know someone who may be interested, send them our way. If they have questions, I'm happy to talk to them. Two right now, and I would say there's potential during the year for maybe one more additional one, depending on what timing Ernie is looking at. So there may be an opportunity to really see some turnover in individuals. So I tried to convince both John Brescher and Jen Carver that they could have triumphant returns, and they both told me we're swamped. No time. So. But if anyone else knows of anyone who may be interested in it, it'd be great to have people apply. Or else these guys have to sit short, so that'd be even more fun. So, well, I hear you. That's right. We got Joe, Ben, and Andy, and Ernie. So we're good. We balance
Tap
out.
into your students. Do you have any kids who want to do it? What's the age limit?
18.
I actually don't know.
Yeah,
There-
it's probably 18.
I would say 18. I know some of like commercial licensing for like shellfishing and stuff goes all the way down to like 14, but I don't believe for regulatory board. I believe you have to at least be an eligible voter.
As a full license holder?
Yeah, you can get a full commercial license at 14 to go scalloping. And that's throughout the Commonwealth. So,
You want to be on Concon?
There
Do
you
you?
go.
Very good.
Hey!
Stand up, say it.
So there's what? So there,
Stand up and say it.
Hit the
what?
runway. Come on.
So again, if people know of anyone, it would be great to have a whole host of people to pick from. Yes,
We've got to generate excitement.
Listen,
it's a dynamic board. It's full of
it's the
fun.
best board.
Full of fun.
Joe brings
There's
candy
usually
on
candy.
occasion. Dave brings candy.
We had cookies recently.
Yes.
Right.
I should start doing it like
that,
in,
that was from Dave's admirer.
yeah.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
Hello, guys. Put on the lowdown.
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen.
You're welcome to attend.
Hi, Jay.
RJ.
I said RJ. Hi, Jay.
Nice, Terry. What a
That would
slider
work
one is.
perfect.
Just a few conflicts. Yeah.
I know.
You would know all the rules.
That's right. I know all the history.
That also being said, as a reminder too, don't forget, we have our next Sconset Bluff hearing on the 6th.
Monday.
Yeah.
Correct, on Monday, at 4, Monday, 4.
And is it downstairs or upstairs?
I believe it's downstairs. We will email reminders again.
Like, motion to adjourn?